Okay, so when we're building Hangman, or basically when we're solving any programming question, what are some of the things that you will want to know when you're trying to either solve a problem, a question, an interview question, or building a project like the Hangman? What is some of the first things that we should start with? And think about, computers are dumb, and we're not gonna talk about code just yet. We're trying to understand the problem first. That's always the first step: understanding the problem and understanding the prompt. So we're asked to build a Hangman game. So what are some of the first things that come to mind? Questions that you should ask. Yeah. Let's say, Joey, what do you think? What would be the first thing that you... Anything?
Does it work?
Okay. Well, but you're going to make it work. So the task is you have to build it. But let's say I'm only telling you have to build a Hangman game. I don't give you any other instructions. Shar? What's Hangman and how does it work? That's a good question. Others? How does it work? Pupil?
How do you want to interact with the player?
How to handle the interaction with the player? Brianna?
I was going to say how to get the user's input, whatever they put in.
Okay.
So that's all under.
Cool. Player interaction, good.
What are your
Restrictions? Others. These are all really good. What does it do? That's actually a good question, so that you can prioritize your tasks. Do they? Joanne? A theme. Cool. These are all really good starting points. So let's start answering some of these questions. What's Hangman? What is Hangman? Okay. Yes. I'm thinking about how we should. Is the word guessing game? And then you have a certain amount of guesses. Let's do this with amount of guesses. Cool. Anything else that we should say about what a Hangman is? It's a word guessing game with a certain amount of guesses. What does that mean? What does it mean to have a certain amount of guesses?
So if you exceed that amount, what will happen? So to exceed it, then the game is over.
Okay. So let's put that under how does it work. One, you have, actually this is And then how does it work? Limited guesses. You have a limited amount of guesses. And then based on this, you win or you lose. I always forget how to spell lose. Only one? Cool. Anything else here? So also, like, what does this, what are these based on? Not only the limited guesses, but actually, like, limited guesses, how could we express the idea that you have limited guesses, and also if you exhaust those guesses, you lose? So let's do this. Limited guesses, if you get 0, then you lose. Anything greater than 0, what happens? You keep playing. Okay. Cool, so we described a little bit of guesses. Now, how does it work on the subject, how do we win? Because,
you can set that to the represent. Well, you have to ask how you're representing the missing words in the player.
but without needing to go there as to how we're representing it, or are you talking about like whether it's going to be a string or an array or something else?
Well, I mean that's per one, but I mean like for example, like my win state is connected to my dash holder. So when there are no dashes left in the dash holder, you won. It's
Right.
all there.
Mm-hmm. So in that case, but then in here we want to be talking about sort of like the high level approach to the problem. That'll be an implementation detail. But like if you have to explain Hangman to somebody that doesn't know how to code, what would you tell it when they ask you, how do I win? Yes.
By when you enter the word hole, there's no more letters to guess.
Correct. So let's do you win. These are sort of points to the how does it work. Say that one more time. I really like the words that you use.
Oh, when there's no more letters left to guess.
Yes. Right. Anything else as to how does it work? Yes.
The game has to check whether your guess is correct or not.
Yes, but that will still be sort of like implementation. Let's think about like you're explaining the game to somebody that doesn't know, has never seen the game and doesn't know how to code. Yes,
It doesn't loop.
there's a loop.
No, does the game itself loop? Like you want to play again, or does it just stop after you want to play?
That's a good point. Let's do that like. Replay it. Okay. Anything else as to how does it work? How does Hangman work? What about? We never said that they have to guess one letter at a time, right? And with our game, could ask one of you build a version where they had the option to try to guess the entire word or try to guess like chunks of the word. So that will be another difference. Let's just include that one. One letter at a time. Cool. Anything else that we should include? Okay, so now player interaction. What does that mean? What does it mean to have player interaction?
Are they clicking something? Are they typing something?
Cool. So also, you mentioned this is a solo game, or at least the version we will be building. That you have one player. Player interaction will be clicking. And then let's continue here and typing. Anything else that we should address on user interaction?
They also do like whatever prompts, like if they're asking you like
So, yeah, some of you that have themed games, you have some prompts to get some information about the user maybe beforehand, stuff like that, or questions that you can ask. Okay, prompts, typing and clicking. Cool. Restrictions. What do we mean by the restrictions? Wait, I forgot who contributed that one. Oh, I think.
Oh,
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
I was thinking more like, what you want to avoid, what you to do,
Okay.
maybe kind of restricting your ideas a little bit so you don't go too crazy with it. Like, let's not make a game where we're doing 11, but let's not make it too colorful, focused on certain things. Like, more just like your restrictions. And if you're talking about the players, like, when you don't allow them to use the same word they used before, or use the same letter they used before, and not get a penalty.
So the restriction will be no repeated guesses. Another restriction will be no numbers. No numbers or special. Anything else? The amount of guesses, right? That's sort of a restriction. Cool. And I think.
Oh, and making something that's not bigger than the length of the word. So like,
What do you mean by that?
like if it's dog, they can't put in elephant, like it's too big.
Oh, I see. That's a.
I didn't do that for mine.
That's a good like. That's a restriction, definitely, that it might not be obvious to most of us. How the user cannot type more letters. Like the user has, let's say, I think we have like 6 body parts that you'll be drawing the element in, and that means they have 6 guesses. But let's say there were 3 letters, dog, and once they type in, they cannot basically keep typing after they have already guessed the word. So how can we do that? I'm trying to think like a quick way to describe that. Anybody can help me?
I thought we were doing one letter at a time.
Say that
I
again.
thought we were doing one letter at a time.
One more time.
I thought we were doing one letter at a time. Maybe what that's
Yes, but like what happens once you finish the game? You don't want the user to keep typing and then keep putting letters in.
make it reset.
Reset.
Oh.
I only suggested that because I thought we were going to let them guess the entire word.
Oh, I see. Like, yeah, if you let them guess the entire word. Okay. Let's do that one for now. Due date. In this case, we had 1 week, and theme. That was basically up to you. I'm really proud to see a lot of different themes. I saw one about like animals. I saw one about Pokemon from Cameron, a TV show, and all others. So hopefully also in that time when we get to see each other's code, also you have a chance to play each other's game and see all the creativity that you all have. So, okay, cool. So, well, in here, sort of another restriction that we have is we're building this in a website, basically, and that comes with some restrictions. What are some of those? What do you think? Yeah.
We say no read line.
No read line. Okay. Yes, that's one restriction, and different platforms have different restrictions, like the command line versus the web, or even you can think about building this for Xbox or for PlayStation 4, right? And then depending on which platform you are, you have restrictions. For instance, our game cannot be too heavy because if not, then it's going to take a long time to download or even be slow. Michael?
Different screen sizes are.
Different screen sizes, that could be a restriction. Or, right, the restriction will be, we will have to account for different screen sizes, right? Versus if you're building it for PlayStation, then you just basically have the same resolution across the board. Cool. Okay, so now that we have the idea clear, and now that we have frame needing to, we need to build this game in the browser, in a website. Let's start to think about what are some of the components that will. Let's start to think about how we match those components that we need to put on the web page to how to match them to this that we described here. So, cool. Anybody can throw in any components that we need to build this web page, web game. You all build it. Bunil? Doc type? What's that? Oh, I'm talking about I guess like the user interface. So we are building the user interface for this game. What are some of the pieces that we need to build that? Char? An input. And this one, if we looked at it like, if we're talking to somebody that's not a code, this might be too general, right? Because there's different ways to input data. So I'm just going to put an input box. Others. Gotcha.
Well, we talked about chances, so we gotta show how many chances to the user
So maybe a guesses counter. And also, so let's do like input box that will map to the player interaction, right? They're going to type in something there. Guesses counter maps to a restriction, the amount of guesses, and also the how does it work, that you have a limited guess count. Anything else? Yes, Joy?
Some kind of reference for what letters they've guessed already.
Okay. Let us guess. Ganesh? Okay. So I'm thinking about that. I feel like that will be an implementation detail, or that depending on how you want to build the game. In this case, let's think about like a minimal viable product where they have an input box and they type in a letter in that input box. They don't have all of the alphabet. Sorry. The button. Cool. Okay, what else? Let's see, somebody who hasn't spoken much. Peter.
Picture or some type of way to actually have the Hangman do.
A picture. Or let's say like a progress picture. Can you guys see this? No, in the back. Okay. Anything else that we're missing? Yes, Karen? Nice. So, okay, let's do that. Like, that'll be the progress picture and also progress word, we could call it. Like, where they can see the progress that they have. Okay? I don't think you guys can see this. Okay, anything else that we're missing? Like to a version 1 of this game. I think we have mostly everything. Okay, now let's convert this from these general components to actually, or map this to actually HTML elements. So these two will be an input type text. Text. This one just map it directly to the submit button. Yep. The hidden answer. Oh. Not yet, since we're looking at this from the perspective of the player. They don't know how that will happen yet. So input box guesses counter. How could we display that in a web page? Okay. Paragraph. P tag. Letter guessed. Another P tag. Progress picture. And progress word. It could be just another P tag, right? So basically, we now wrote our HTML without having to write any line of code. And all that by just like looking at understanding the game and then seeing what are the pieces that the user needs to interact with to accomplish this basic set of instructions. Cool. So let's do that. I think we can write at least the. We could write at least the HTML. So I'm going to go here. Oh, also these are the pairs in which you will be working with. I'm gonna put this on Slack right now. If you okay, we have a couple stuff showing up. One is we have the box. We have two counters that start at 0. Actually, maybe this one should start just empty, and this is where we're going to put the letters that they have tried. And then we have a Hangman picture. We don't have the Hangman's pictures yet. Where could we get those from? Sure, I think I was looking at Hangman. What was his page? This is the Hangman pictures. Let's see if we can find them online. Oh, there you go. We may be able to use this. Oh, but these are for sale. This one you use this one? Yes, Jenny. A screenshot? But this is too small of a resolution. Somebody has to put them on. Let's do GitHub. Probably somebody put them on GitHub somewhere. There we go. Nice. We have some photos here. Let's download this. And just take the, actually, we don't need to download them. We could just use them from here. If we just need the URL basically, right? So let's just look at if these names have any pattern. So it seems that this is where they start with. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to take this URL and put it in my image. Save. We go here, refresh. Now we have a Hangman. Okay, so we've got something. Now let's think about the implementation. So, but still, without going to detail into the code, how would we handle user interaction? Right, without having to say, oh, add document, add event listener, anything. Just like, sort of, if we could abstract that and without having to talk specifics as to what the code that we need to write is, how can we describe what we're about to do? Which is, so I guess, let me give you an example. For the images, what we're going to do, we have an image tag in the web page, and what we're going to do is, depending on the guesses remaining, we're just going to replace that image with another image that represents that the user failed to guess. So, sort of in that frame, how could we describe, for instance, what we're going to have to do as developers with this input box? So let's say the user types in the input box, they type a letter, and they hit enter. What should happen? Yes.
So whether their guess is right or wrong.
A little bit louder.
They should be told whether their guess was right or wrong.
They should be told whether their guess was right or wrong, correct. And do we have that ability at the moment? Do we have the ability to say that guess is right or wrong? Okay, so we don't have that. There's no way currently for us to do that, right? So what does that say? So we picked that as our first starting point, but then we realized that we don't have that yet. So maybe we need to have another starting point for when we start writing this code. What do you think that starting point is? Yes, Douglas?
That it shouldn't refresh the page like the default.
That it shouldn't refresh the page. Currently, it's not refreshing the page.
Oh, it's
But so going off of the idea that we are unable to tell the user whether this is a good guess or a bad guess, but why? Why is that? Why is it that we cannot tell the user that's a wrong or right guess? Giselle? I have nothing to test it against, right? Okay, so what should I do first? Like, what is, if we could elaborate on what am I going to test this letter against is? Yes, Karen? Against a selected word, okay. So that means we somehow have to pick a word, right? And then let's go off that. What will be the next thing? Like, what has to be done before we can actually pick a word? It should be random, yes. We have to have the game pick a random word from a set of words, right? So that means that before we can even tell the user whether their guess is right or wrong, we need a set of letters or of words, basically. For that, I believe we had well, actually, in this case, since we're building a very basic version, I'm just going to say we have 5 words. Okay, so let's go on our JavaScript. Also, the first thing that we want to do is link this HTML with the JavaScript. We'll do that with a script tag. Source. I have index.js that I created in this same folder. That's it. Now let's open up index.js. And we have our set of words. So let's create, so what is a good way to have a set of something in JavaScript? An array, right? Words. Let's do cat, mouse, house. Independence. Full stack web. So for your games, you had more words, but just for illustration purposes, this should be enough. Okay, now we have the problem where, okay, how do we select a random word from this array? Create a function. It's good to have a function because why is it good to have functions? so that you don't have to repeat code. And the main point for function is reusability. So let's say you want the user to, once they finish a game, to play again. You just need to call that function again, get random word, to get a new random word. So let's create a function, get random word. What does this function needs to work? What should be the input? A list of words, right? So, and we don't want this function to have side effects in this case. So let's just do list. In fact, if you think about, like, this function could just be get random element. And this function should get a random element from any list that you give it. Doesn't matter if that list is a number, is a list of numbers, or a list of words. It should just be able to get any random element from it. So I'm just going to call it get random element. So for getting, how could we get a random element from within a list that we know is an array? Generate a random index, and because arrays are indexed, then if we don't know what that random index is going to be, we end up having a random element picked via a random index from the list. So let's create a variable called random index be equal to, then how do we create a random number? We can do math.random. Math.random will give you a number between 0 and 1, not including 1. So it could give you 0.5, it could give you 0.95, or it could give you just 0. And we want to scale this number so that, because a number from 0 to 1, not including 1, in this case would not be very useful for an array that has 7 elements. We'll need to scale this number to be a random number from a greater range, basically. So that is not only a random number from 0 to 1, but from index 0 to the length of the array. For doing that, what we do is we multiply that number from 0 to 1 with the list.length. And then if let's say the random number is, let's go in here. Yeah. I just call it list. Once I call this function, I'm going to give the list, and that list is going to be words. So let's look at here. Math.random gives a number, a floating point number from 0 to 1, right? And then we want to multiply that by, let's say in this case 7, so that we get a larger number. This number will be between 0 and 7, but not including, in this case, yeah, not including 7. This will always give us a random number between 0 and 7, not including 7. And the last thing that we need to do is, because indices are integers, whole numbers, we need to round that down with math.floor. So this part calculates a random index. And the last thing that we want to do is just access the list at that random index and return that element. So let's do return list at random index. Cool. Okay, now how could we try this function? How could we see if this works? To see if this gives us a random word out of the list, out of the words. Console log. Let's maybe call here a variable called random word equal get random element, and we pass in the words, and we do random word. Cool. Now, how how could I test this? Well, I know the console, but how can I make this code run? Open the HTML and inspect. So I have my HTML here. I'm refreshing. TM says we need to inspect here to see the console. And we have independence. Now let's refresh it. All right, everyone, make sure you switch your roles so that you play the. Actually, I think you all just played each other's game already. But make sure that the questions are asked the other way around. We get another 15 minutes for that.